Hello and welcome to this video. Thank you so much for tuning in and sharing this down moment with myself and with one another. If you haven't seen these videos before, welcome and welcome back if you have. Today's video is going to be a Kiss Keep It Simple Starseed video, which are generally just informative videos, but we're going to go into a little bit of flow and kind of see where this leads. I've been getting a lot of messages about the chakra system, so this will probably be a several portion video. Obviously, I have my wonderful artwork behind me. Sarcasm. But I was guided to draw this. I actually started recording the video and then I saw all these pictures and I thought, well, I better draw it and then kind of start over. So what I recorded, I'll include in a blog. I did update my blog post. You guys are more than welcome to go to carrieyvonne.com to check that out. I am keeping that Kiss Keep It Simple Starseed information, but I just figured I had some advice from someone, thank you, Kevin, about just keeping it simple and simplifying it so it'll be easier for people to find. And then if you guys want to read some of the things that I've written in the form of light-coded information and just a kind of inflow Alice in Wonderland style, you're more than welcome to read on that blog. So having said that, we'll see where this goes. So my intention with all of the videos that I offer are for the collective and for the raising of the frequency and the vibration with one another and on Mother Earth, in addition to just bringing our awareness around ascension and kind of what's going on in this journey based on my own perspective from my higher guidance team. My higher guidance team consists of my higher self, of course, multidimensional aspects of myself from other higher dimensions, as well as ancestors that I connect with, and the galactics and angelics, so which are all one. So I'm just going to go into a little flow, and then I'm going to explain this a little bit, although it's pretty self-explanatory. Then you're invited to breathe, and they're sharing with me too that the breathing is so important. So I found myself lately sighing a lot and just kind of doing those breathing, because as we get these downloads and activations, we can get certain body things like heart palpitations, and we can feel a little anxious at times, or sometimes just that big breath in can help us clear stuff that we're feeling. Sometimes a good cry is good for that as well. Doro ondoros tashtara ender hesteshtara akur esteshtara et indras tashtara okur et it arhat arhat istashtra et indrashtra okur doro ondoros tashtara at it enasta okur shtra et istanhat ashtra akar doro shtra endix indrahak okur. Again, this is meant to be felt, not necessarily understood on a linear level. I wasn't planning on going into light language. I was planning on just going into this, but so light language is, in essence, assisting in kind of breaking up some maybe habitual frequencies that perhaps some of people in the collective were hanging on to. Also, we're being invited to change our belief systems around the chakras. So I'm going to come back to that in a minute. So as we integrate our chakra system, so to speak, as we upgrade and align with more resonance, with more harmony, with different harmonics that are now accessed in our field, that are coming from the great void, we get our wheels spinning in a different frequency pattern, in a different frequency harmonic, in a harmonious interaction, intermingling, co-mingling, accessing. Different spectrums that were unavailable or unaccessible or inaccessible previously. So I'm seeing that as in previous timelines, in previous fields of existence, in previous dimensions. And so we're essentially rebooting the system. So I'm just going to start by sharing. They've really invited me to invite you to just let go of all your old beliefs about chakras. This is one perspective. There will be a myriad of perspectives that will all be utilizing different dimensional aspects of the new and improved chakra system that is accessing more divine potential than what was available before. So there are many beings out there who are learned in this field, and we are inviting you to, they're just saying, don't deny yourself more messages that are coming in. Like, don't doubt it. So for those of you out there who are watching this that know all about the chakras, what they're kind of showing me is like you're getting messages about the system, about the upgrades. So don't be afraid to let go of your old beliefs about how they work, because on a third dimensional level, that is how they work, and that is how they worked. But what they're sharing with me is that is no longer so they're showing me that the bandwidths are elongating. So they're saying so long farewell to the old system, and we invite you to elongate your perspective and say so long to the previous systems that we were educated on. For though that education, as empowering as it was, and as helpful and important and informative as it was in formation based on a certain retrieval system in which we were receiving from. So the information, they're showing this as multidimensional. So not only the information that the chakras were working on, and that retrieval system as a chakra, saying this wheel is a retrieval system, but also the information that we were receiving about the system, because it was based on an old energy, an old way of being things. And they're reminding us that we are being invited not to resist the newness that's coming in, right? The new information that's coming in, so that we can then retrieve lost bits. BYTS, I think, BYTES, bits of information that were implanted in your field once this change took place, that can now access it. So I'm kind of seeing like we have an old computer system, and the computer system's being rebooted, and now all of a sudden you restart your computer, and because it did updates, there's stuff in there that you didn't have before, but it's more that you didn't have access to before, or that was just dark. It was not connected. It was essentially always there, but it was just shut down. And they had me draw a picture of this wheel earlier, and I drew it. So the picture that they were showing me was the Marvel Comics movie. I make a lot of movie references. And so if you haven't seen it, that's okay. But there's a scene, you don't have to watch it. It's a very violent movie, but there's a scene in the movie where, and I will just touch briefly, a lot of comic book movies and movies in general are soft disclosure. They are bits and pieces of the real truth. We just think that they're, we're told that this is fantasy, and in reality, it's part of that. It's very true. So they're giving me an example of Avatar, and they're giving me an example of Doctor Strange, which is one of my favorite Marvel comic book movies, because everything about it I was seeing, and then I watched that movie, and I had just gotten reference to all of the things that they talk about in that movie. So there's a scene in the Marvel Comics movie where, and they're showing me these as infinity stones. Whew, okay, we're going to do this as a couple part video, because I haven't really read up on the infinity stones and exactly what they are. But so there's a scene where the giants were on this planet, And I'm also being referred to as dwarfs. So I'm using two different storylines because I'm going to tie them in together. So the giant was forging, he forged Thor's hammer. And the forge in which he forged the hammer was shut down or usurped by an entity, or we'll call it a galactic force, okay? Shut down the forge, which was powered by a star. So I'm going to call our star the sun. So, and I'm also making reference to, we're going to use giants and dwarfs interchangeably here, just for the purpose of this video. So Thor comes back, he's a god, and he essentially, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the last movie, this isn't the most recent, so maybe fast forward through this part, but Thor essentially goes in, and this wheel kind of looks like this, it's not exact, but there's these two wheels, and in the middle it turns, right? And as that spins, it brings this star energy, this laser beam down into the forge and lights up the forge to warm it up. It has to get hot enough in order to forge Thor's hammer. So the only thing that can forge it is this star, and the star was shut down, okay? So essentially Thor, channels this energy from the star, gets these wheels spinning again, and I'm making reference to chakras here because many of us have heard chakras as being wheels. But I'm also having reference to wheels in the sky keep on turning. I'm also having reference to a clock. If you look at a clock with all the gears in it, right? And all of those, they get stuck and corroded and the clock stops working, right? And so now those wheels are being greased, if you will, lit up, and now they're spinning again in the appropriate motion in order to forge the fire. And this is also reference to Kundalini, but also in reference to light required to get through the chakra system to light it up into one big, beautiful ball of energy. And so as we forge ahead in our integrating of these systems, and as the light is shown from the outside seemingly sources, as well as shown, so I'm seeing like the light is shown not only through education, but from the heart and from our third eye projector. Lots of references here. It is then accessible in this new field. So the older systems were creating certain blockages. And so if you see that part of the movie, the forge was not able to be lit because the light from the star the star was shut down. So this is multidimensional. We can say the sun wasn't able to get through to us for whatever reason, the nets that were created to block it. We could say that our chakra system, our heart, wasn't able to get down into all of the chakras to then forge that fire. We could say that our connection to source energy was blocked because of this. I'm going to go into this a little deeper and talk about resonance and sound. First, I'm going to see if this is where we should be going with this. And as the wheels in the sky keep on turning, so to speak, there are certain access points in the grid, in the system, if you will, that are lit up. And they spark fires that are relevant to what is needed in this now moment. What is needed to access in order to stimulate that which has not been stimulated and sent into the system in a very, 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 very long while. And so we invite you to shift your frequency in the form of expansion and oneness so that these access points may line up. So again, I see a little bit of connect the dots. I did a previous video. If you look up, there's a grid that I drew. Can't remember what it's called. I'll try to send the link. Not maybe a week ago, 2 weeks ago, I drew a square box, and they made reference to access points within the cubes, within the grids. I also had a session recently with the beautiful light worker who we activated some things for her in her system, in her third eye, and we did it. She also helped me in that session, which I came to learn, since she's a grid worker as well. And we basically opened up certain portals within certain areas within our fields, which also opens those portals for other star seeds to kind of activate within. And what I'd seen was a Rubik's Cube with like these different portals. And if you look at a Rubik's Cube and you've put the Rubik's Cube all together, we'll call that a coherent Rubik's Cube. And I'm kind of being guided to draw this. So I'll do the non-coherent Rubik's Cube. This is going to be several videos, I can tell, but I'll try to make this one fairly short. If only I could draw. So you've got this Rubik's Cube. Okay. Oh, not too shabby. Not that great, but either. And I'm just going to draw this across and do a short version, right? And let's say that's one. And then you have this one over here, the coherent Rubik's Cube. My non-coherent one looked a lot better. That looks like a toaster oven. But either way, you get the point, right? Okay, so this Rubik's Cube, all of this is blue because you found that, you know, everything's together, even though there's still lines in it, right? They could turn and twist, and then this side is all red, right? For example. And then that's all yellow, and the other one's all white. And essentially, this one, though, is like still all over the place. You got a red, blue one here, and then you got a blue one over here, and then you got a blue one up here, right? And then you got the red one. You get the picture. You guys know what a Rubik's Cube looks like. So the pieces aren't put together. So what I saw essentially was a little bit more explanation of access points. Let's pretend these are all portals, and let's say our system is in a cube, and that's not the right shape, but it's really easy explanation for those, you know, who are just keep it simple. So you've got, let's say you're here on the portal system. Now, this is all blue, but on the other side, it's all white. So you could go in through these cubes and get out to these other areas because this is all cohesive. So now all of those tunnels that before you'd be in a labyrinth that never went anywhere. Now we're in a labyrinth that's easier to get from point A to point B, but it's also easier to get to other memories. It's also easier to get to other connections with other star brothers and sisters. It's also easier to connect with the other planets. And this might be, let's say, 2D, 3D. This might be comparable to 5D, so on and so forth, although it's a very linear perspective. So it's essentially portals and access points. So there's different access points on here, or you could think of the Earth. You've got ley lines, right? And you've got portals. So you've got the portals that are in the Middle East. You've got the portals that are in Ireland. You've got the portals that are, let's say, in Stonehenge. And that connects, let's say, over to that, you know, in the ley lines and all of that. And you can, you know, if you go to let's say Canada, you might connect to someplace in Australia. I'm just using that as an example. That would be an example of what I'm kind of talking about from one perspective. So I saw us connecting some of those in a session that I was working on with a client, and specifically to her and to a collective that we were involved in assisting. So this is happening. If you're here, it's you know, people are having trouble connecting the dots. So this is a multi-layered talk. It's not just about chakras, but that's part of it. So they're guiding me to keep going. So what they showed me is that now they got this wheel turning on this star, for example, and let's call it the star. This is the sun. That's our star. Now this is one version. There's also other things that are helping to activate these chakra centers. But there's light codes that come in from the sun, and there's plasma all around us. And the plasma fields interact with the sun's plasma fields. It's all connected, right? And you guys, again, if you're very knowledgeable in this, I'm giving a very basic presentation, and this is really just one perspective. So there will be more, and there's probably people out there, I know there are, that have a much more, we'll say, advanced perspective. I just am explaining it from my own basis. So what I see is, oh, excuse me. So now you've got the sun, beaming down these little waves, we'll say. And I'm connecting all this into the earth. And you've got the sun over here beaming down its waves in through to the earth. So this is the earth star chakra here. Okay. Earth. Earth. Okay. And then that's the soul star chakra. There's more. This is just the basics. So now, in addition to that, though, you've got all these rays from the sun that are helping our body, our skin, our cells, and everything else, in addition to holding certain memory codes. But that's a whole other video. So what happens is with this coherent structure, you've got person over here, we'll call this HM, and this is BV. So HM is heavy metal, and BV is Beethoven. Or BT, but we'll say BB. So the reason I'm bringing this up is if you look up Dr. Emoto's water experiment, which I mentioned in many different videos, it'll show a picture of heavy metal music, the vibration of it. Now this is, I'm going to just kind of go back. This is about all of this, all of it is about sound, color, shape, frequency, vibrations, waves, harmonics, resonance, coherence, okay? They essentially are all working together. Now, of course, if you read the Bible, there was the word sound, right? And the word was one. So sound, that's why people feel light language, toning, holds a certain frequency. So if this person, and you guys, I'm using this as an example. This isn't exactly how it works. This is just one example. Heavy metal versus Beethoven's. So music. If you listen to classical music, it holds a certain frequency, which then will hold a certain color, such as red versus, blue. So we're just going to use this as, so each heavy metal. So now you've got the sun sending out these certain frequencies, and we'll call this a chakra. And again, loosely driven here. And we'll say that the sun is assisting in getting this wheel spinning again in the appropriate direction, or we'll talk about it changing shape probably in another video. So, and I went a little backwards here, guys, but it's coming in, and let's say that it's coming in and it's activating certain things within the body. But let's say you're a person who is, not you, but let's say someone you know is really in a dark place. And it's not, and I'm not saying heavy metal means they're in a dark place. I rock out to heavy metal sometimes too. Metallica is awesome. But that doesn't mean I'm going to listen to Metallica 24/7 all the time. So I'm just backing up a little bit, because there have our airwaves, our radio waves, hold certain frequency. So now I'm going off on another little multidimensional aspect. So let's say a person listens to heavy metal, really hardcore, negative heavy metal. And you guys know there's certain about just awful things, we'll say, that are not resonant or coherent. And it's not, when I say awful, I'm not even trying to say that with a judgment. Full of awe, so it's not really awful, right? But it's full of a certain harmonic, right? So we'll say that it's non-coherent. It looks like scrambled black energy. Again, I encourage you to look up Dr. Masaru Emoto. You look at a crystal that's full of coherence, and let's say it looks like, you know, a beautiful star, and we'll say it looks like a heart, and it's got all these beautiful things around it. And you look at one under heavy metal, and it looks like this, right? So, and it's fuzzy. It's not able to connect the access points. Or we could call the access points the nadis, right, in the body, the meridians. The highways of the body are a little scrambled. The highways in the brain are a little scrambled, which means the energy centers are a little scrambled because of this incoherence. So this person is listening to negative music. Maybe that heavy metal is somebody in their ear all the time telling them they're not worthy, they suck, whatever it might be. It doesn't have to be, I'm using music as an example because it's easy, but it could be in the form of abuse. It could be in the form of drugs that are causing this frequency, right? It could be in the form of, but generally speaking, we're using words and sound. Now let's say that now this person over here is in the Beethoven, okay? But I want to show that these are interchangeable. If this person decides to listen to heavy metal one day, they're already in a space of coherence. So they can listen to the heavy metal and they're not going to necessarily be as affected as this person over here, because this person is at this space of disharmony and non-coherence and scrambled wavelengths, okay? So now, this is the stuff that you can hear, right? What about all the stuff that you can't hear, that are coming through the radio waves, that are coming in through the internet, that are coming in EMF frequencies, that are coming through so on and so forth? The more you're here, the less those things will affect you. And that's what ascension is all about, is becoming sovereign and free and being in a space of coherence, that everything does line up, that this heavy metal music, now when it's blared, doesn't take you out of your heart. You can just say, I choose to turn that off, right? Or I choose to rock out to that right now and love it and have a great time, and then move on, right? So I'm using that as an example based on the structure that it creates, or the disharmony or harmony that it creates within the body. So if we take that a step further and we go into all this energy that's trying to come in from the sun, and let's say this person, it's not about the, they're constantly being told that they're not good enough. They're constantly being bombarded by music that isn't uplifting. They're not eating foods that resonate with them, and they never go outside and get any sun. They're just depressed. It's very challenging for that individual to find this, to open up to this energy, because it creates this scrambled field. And then it's harder for those waves to get in, where this person, right, has these already around them. And I'm drawing these as arcs because the wavelengths, then think of this as arcs. The wavelengths from the sun come in and interact. Think of a sheet of music, right? And we'll call the bandwidths come in from the sun, and they make beautiful music okay? Musical notes in our field. But if we can't hear them or we can't feel them because we're in such disharmony, that's what's happening to a lot of individuals. Now, I'm going a little deeper into this with the chakras. So I don't know if you can see all that now. I've drawn so much stuff. It's a little bit, looks like it may be a second grader. So having said that, the chakra system is similar to, let's call it, these wheels. And so there's been these wheels, and if you look up a chakra and you look at some of the ancient texts, they actually have pictures drawn of what the chakra systems look like. They look like music. If you look at music being played in water, our bodies are 70% water, right? Now, not to say this is making a chakra as a physical thing. I'm just doing that as a reference so you can physically, or you can visualize what I'm talking about. So now these chakras, it's like they were shut down in this particular person. Or let's say maybe this particular person's heart is open, but they're scared, and so it shuts down. And then their heart opens, and then somebody tells them that they're not worthy, and then it shuts down. So there's this constant upheaval, scramble in that person's field. So the chakras, the star, was never able to start the forge to light up the ladder, the bridge, right? Or you could look at it as the star wasn't able to light enough heat in the heart to then activate everything else. Or you could look up, you could think of the star wasn't from, let's say, source energy. They lose their connection with source, think that they're all alone, and that shuts everything down. So there's all these energy centers that were meant to spin and essentially assist us with integration of energies and access higher knowledge, and think of them as like an overpass on a freeway, and that overpass is blocked. So think about the traffic jam in the body because that overpass was shut down and everything was rerouted. Now you've got somebody who's coherent and they're in all of this. They hear the music, but they're still resonating in this coherent space. So what's happening is all of these wheels, now it's moving. So these light up, okay? These light up. Not necessarily in this order, guys. Everything lights up, right? And it's all, that's supposed to be yellow, by the way. And now everything's on, right? This person's on. This is the higher heart. This is the throat. And so everything's spinning. Everything is on. And now all of this, okay, is lighting up their field and causing the interaction between this and this, the sun, the star, to heat up, literally, alchemize. So all of these that were once individual energy centers, okay, they're being guiding me to talk about snow. So I was getting all these references to Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, which I've alluded to in a few videos. I know this is a long video, you guys, so I'm going to keep going. So I'll let you pause here, take a little break. If you want to hit pause at this point and start at a different time, this might be a good place to end. So because we've talked about a lot about coherence. I'll just, before I go into the Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, I will say if you aren't, if you feel like you're not your heart, I do invite you to go back and watch Heart versus Head video. There's also a lot of great techniques, of meditations and visualizations that are all over the internet to assist you in raising your frequency and vibration. That's why it's so important as we vibrate, right? It helps us to stabilize these fields around us that are causing disharmony. It helps us to integrate those things so that they're not sticking and getting stuck in our energy fields, right, or in our chakra system. All right, so if you decided to keep going, all right, this is the part 2, we'll call it, of the video. So now these chakra systems are essentially coming in line. And this allows you to connect heaven to earth, in essence, right? Source energy into the earth and anchor the frequencies that are coming from the sun and other stars systems. That's another video. But that anchors that vibration into the earth, but also moving into the chakras, snow. So if you think of snow, snow is water. It holds a shape, and each snowflake is individual in its expression. There's no snowflake that is not alike, that is alike, right? They're all made up of water, but they're all different, just like us. So we all come from water, but essentially the shape or the color or the frequency or the vibration or the harmonic that we express is a different snowflake, okay? But you have these, they're guiding me to go into the collective experience. Okay, we'll go into that in a minute. So I was getting all this reference to Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs. Well, that is reference to me is snow and the chakra system. And then that came in, you know, if you think of the dwarves, they're mining for gold, for jewels. And if you think of each of these chakra systems, we'll call them a stone, an emerald, right? A ruby, a sapphire, or a star sapphire, or a star ruby up here. You've got your amethyst, you've got your rose quartz, you've got your citrine, okay? All these different crystals. If you look at a precious stone and you look at its geometry and its shape, it holds a different pattern. So each of these were individualized precious stones, precious gems, we'll call them. And they all held a certain shape or sound frequency, color, bandwidth, and they all spun at a certain rate of frequency. If they got stuck, it would be something like a precious stone with impurities in it, right? And I'm just using that as a, you know, you've all seen a diamond and it's got all this black in it, you know, it's still beautiful, but it's better if it's clear, right? Or has a certain color to it. So now this connection and being in coherence assists in stabilizing this beautiful sound so that these all now are changing shape. So many of you have heard we're going from carbon base to something else, and that's a whole other video, but we're changing, we're alchemizing lead into gold, right? So these stones, I read somewhere that they're finding new formations of crystals. Like, they don't even know what these crystals are. They just found them, and now they're finding that this is a brand new crystal. Well, that's the earth changing her chakra systems in one perspective. And now there's new formations that are being expressed. Our chakra system, from what they're showing me, is now changing into an expression as oneness. So I'm just going to go briefly into snow. Now I'm going to go into another video on Snow White and use that as a reference as well. In fact, I'll do that on a separate video because we're getting kind of lengthy here. But essentially, if we just think about the body as holding water, right? It holds harmonics and sound. And so if we're sending, the more harmonics we can allow to change the shape of the water that is in our bodies, the more it, and they're showing me fascia has a big part to do with this. Your fascia helps to hydrate your body and send signals to everything, right? Fingertips, toes, nose, all of it. So that's why this individual that was dehydrated, not filling their body with things that they need, and then on top of that, filling a frequency of words and harmonics with disharmony, is not able to connect as well as this person over here who is saying, I love you, body. You know, thank you so much for getting me through the day. Thank you so much for my senses. Thank you. Gratitude, gratitude, gratitude. So what they're showing me is that this becomes a rainbow. We thought of it as a bridge before, but now this is a rainbow. I see the chakra system as like, some people are seeing it as white, and that is the snow reference. But white holds all the colors. So this is now a rainbow. It's not lines. Yes, this is a rainbow, but there's that essence of separateness, right? It's all one once that comes onto line. And that means the shape of the snowflake that we're representing morphs into something else. Not the soul signature, that's something different, but essentially the shape of the energy centers. And so this looked like this before, but now it's going to look like something a little different. And that's essentially what I'll go into a little deeper into the next video. But I just wanted to share kind of what it looks like from a really simplified perspective as to what's going on. And we'll go from there. So thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you found this somewhat informative and helpful as to maybe why the chakra systems aren't looking the same to some people, or you know, there might be people are struggling with finding that coherence, and really it's all about this and getting into that gratitude space of gratitude. So in the next video, I'll talk a little bit more about the plasma and the sun, I think. I'll talk a little bit more about the chakras and snow, and also maybe a little bit of the DNA. In love and light, guys. Namaste.